Hello, welcome to Mums Who Rise podcast, episode number 3. I am filming this off the back of the last one where my hair is still a mess and all the things, but like I say, we move. We're here to do important work to help you mums, to support you mums, and that doesn't depend on what I look like or how I feel in myself. That depends on what I am sharing with you and the value that you get from it. So I've come to show up and to share, and today's episode is hopefully not going to be a super long one. It's just going to be about asking yourself a really important question, because I asked myself this question through my healing journey in motherhood, and it changed the way that I parent completely. And it actually helped me remove a ton of triggers and a ton of discomfort in motherhood really quickly, because once I got this answer and I kept reminding myself of the answer to this question, then things just started to fall into perspective a little bit easier. Things I was able to prioritize easier, and the things that once felt really heavy felt far less heavy because this answer was so important to me. So I'll take you back a little bit. It was probably a little while into my healing journey, so I've sort of just started that process of identifying triggers and feeling more calm and more joy in motherhood, being more intentional about my motherhood. And I came up with this question, which wasn't actually related to motherhood at the time, it was related to something else. That's where I've seen it, and I put it into my motherhood experience. And the question was, at the end of your life, how do you want to be remembered? And for me, that put me straight into the mindset of my children. How do I want my children to remember me? So at the end of my life, how do I want my children to remember their mum? And this answer just shifted everything for me, because once I'd sat and dug into okay, how do I want to be remembered? Then I could see very clearly where in my life I was living in alignment with that and where in my life I was out of alignment with that. And so that allowed me to shift how I behaved, how I thought, how I responded in any given situation to fit with how I wanted to be remembered at the end of my life. Because you're not remembered at the end of your life for one thing that you did. You're remembered at the end of your life for the little things that you did on a regular basis. How did you show up every day? What feeling did you give to people when you walked into a room? These are the things that people remember long term. And if you can put yourself in that place of imagining the end of your life and imagining your gravestone and imagining what would be written on there or what would people be saying at your funeral, if you can put yourself in that mindset, you get a whole new perspective on your life. And for me, the answer was really clear and it came really quickly, which for me was that I wanted to be remembered as being light, as being playful, as being fun, as being a person who brought energy and lightness into a room. I don't want to be the person who brings any heaviness, any bad feeling when I walk in. I just want to be remembered as light and fun and playful, somebody who cheered people up and brightened their day. So when I got that answer, I was really quickly able to see where in my life I was living in alignment with that and where I wasn't. And I tell you, to be honest, it was a little bit of a shock, because a little bit sad at first, because there were so many places in my life where I was out of alignment with that. The way that I was talking to my kids when the house was a mess, that I would get overwhelmed by the mess and not focus on the fact that the kids were playing and that I could join in. When I wanted to be a bit silly and playful, but motherhood felt quite heavy for me in the beginning. And so I actually recognized that I was being really serious and taking it really seriously. And that's not to say that you shouldn't take motherhood seriously. For you, that might be really important. But for me, what that looked like was I was taking motherhood so seriously that I'd lost a lot of joy. I'd lost a lot of laughter. I'd lost a lot of fun. And it was like this all-consuming thing that was whizzing around in my head all the time. And I couldn't switch that off enough to just be present in the moment with my kids. And that is when, for me, I knew that was a problem. And again, just with this perspective of the end of my life, Is that how I want to be remembered? This serious mum who really wanted the best for her children, but was boring and couldn't laugh and couldn't really find joy and presence and peace because I was constantly striving for more. That was out of alignment. And so then I could remind myself every day. Like at first, I used to literally remind myself of this every single day. How do I want to be remembered? Is this in alignment with being light and fun and playful? And if not, what can I do now to shift it? And sometimes, you know, especially when you're first starting, you go through your old habits. So it's not like they change overnight just because you've decided. Like you'll go on autopilot and do the things that you normally do, but respond in the way that you normally respond. The secret is about catching that as early as you can and catching it earlier and earlier and earlier in the process, so that you start to build a new habit. So you're kind of interrupting the pattern. So let's, for example, say you finish work and you're cooking tea and you can't be present, you can't be playful, you can't have 5 minutes with your kids because you're just constantly thinking about like having tea and having a bath and going to bed. And that's your default setting. So you come in, you shove the kids in the living room, you're like, everybody get out, I'm going to cook. And you run through that pattern that you always run through. On the first day, you might get to the end of that meal and go, oh, remember I want to be playful and light and fun or peaceful. And yours will be different to mine. This is just mine as an example. Now you've got, you know, bath time, bedtime to kind of try and do that, to try and live in alignment with what you say that you want. And then the next day you might catch it in between, halfway through the meal. Then the next time it might be bedtime. And then after that, you just get better and better at noticing when you are living in and out of alignment with what you say you want. And you catch it earlier and earlier until that becomes a habit in itself. You start to say, okay, when I get in, I'm going to be fun and playful and happy. And you do that intentionally for however many days. And then all of a sudden you find yourself doing it on autopilot. You don't even care about the mess because your new habit is to focus on your children, to play and to have fun, to be present in the moment. So just asking yourself this question won't change things automatically. There is still work to be done. You still need to have conscious awareness of it until it becomes a habit, until it becomes ingrained in your subconscious mind and just part of your habits and part of who you are. But doing this exercise also does one other really important thing. So the first thing is that it makes you live more intentionally based on how you want to be remembered at the end of your life. And the second thing is that it ensures that you don't die with regret, or that it's not even that you die with regret. Maybe like the end of their childhood comes and you have regret about how you managed that situation because you were running on a subconscious program all of the time. You never took back control of how you actually wanted it to feel. And so I think about like the end of their childhood, or like when they grow up and they leave the nest, or when they're just like teenagers and they don't want or need you as much anymore. How do I want to be sitting on my evenings looking back through their childhood? Do I want to be sitting there thinking, God, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd been more playful. Or do I want to look back and say, I really tried to be as playful as I could, to be as fun as I could, to be as light as I could, to be whatever it is, the answer of your question. Do I want to look back and say that I really did that and I was that mum? And now that they're older, they can begin to recognise that that was who I, like, that's just who they think I am. And I might have to tell them some days, I actually had to work really hard at that. But they, in their minds, just think, yeah, my mum's fun, she's light, she's airy. They don't have the same stress response that I do when my mum's coming around for a cup of tea and I'm like, oh my God, I've got to do that, I've got to do this. They come round and they say like, oh, my mum's coming, it's going to be fun, because that's how they've been programmed, because that's how I chose to be when they were younger. So it's a really important question. I really want you to sit with it for a little while, and maybe for you the answer will come up straight away like it did for me, and for others it'll take a little bit of time. It might take a bit of journaling. Just write that at the top of the page. How do I want to be remembered at the end of my life? What do I want written on my gravestone? How do I want my children to remember me? can be, you know, any variation of that question. And think about the feelings that you want to give to people, like that you want them to feel when you are around. Maybe just the personality traits that you really want to start to embody. And yeah, basically, how do you want to be remembered? Because then that means that you can live more in alignment today. You become more consciously aware of how you are responding in any given moment, so that you can choose to respond rather than react from old programming, old beliefs that you're just kind of letting run, even though they don't feel great and they're not in alignment with where you want to go. So it's about being more intentional with your motherhood. And yeah, let me know in the comments, what is the answer to your question? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want your children to remember you? And how are you going to start to implement that more in your life? Because again, it's one thing knowing how you want to be, but if you're not committed to doing the work, to actually be that version of you, then it's pointless, because at the end of the day, you'll be remembered by how you act, not by your intentions. So let me know in the comments, what is the answer to your question? And if you want any support while you move through this process, my free community, Mums Who Rise, is there. We do meetups. I give tools and resources to help you do this, how to regulate and how to be more intentional in your motherhood. But we also have like lots of support. I do live Q&As in there, so you can get all of the answers you need inside that community completely free. I would love to have you in there, and I can't wait to hear some of your answers. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and yeah, take care.